overall, is this whole "I am the Undertaker's son" thing something that you consciously keep a little on the down low?
Absolutely. Yeah. It quite literally for I'm 31 now actually. I just celebrated my 31st rotation.
That was your
Um
vacation, right?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And got to catch up with family and was great. But I mean most of my life has been sort of hiding in that shadow. And a lot of people I see, in the chat are like, it's so obvious now. Like I see it. And that's genetics betraying me
Yeah.
so heavily because we are so visually like we look the same. I look at pictures when he's a kid. I could pass for his twin brother
Yeah.
at like our age. And people rarely ever find out from me. Like I think I told you and in the DMs, I was like, I like to let the cool kids know, sure, like, but I never lead with it. I always have found that people find out some way or another, via be it the grapevine or just like again, like I look so much like him. So then it's like if you watch, if you know, and they come to me and I'm like, yeah, that's my pops.
Oh
But I never
man.
led. I never ever intentionally led with it. I intentionally be myself first before that information gets confirmed.
I have so many questions about how long it maybe took for you to put yourself first in that way, or if that was always a reflex. But before we really dive into it, everybody in chat, I have a hard time reading chat and doing the interviews. I like to be mindful with the guest. So, our little stand in thing that you can do is if you have a question for Shogundy, please use the interview question channel point redeem. And I can't guarantee I'll get to all of them, but that's a better way for me to kind of pay attention to them. Uh, Mindful and demure. By the way, where does this demure come from? Everyone, I don't even know where that started. But let me ask you this. We're going to start. I have a few questions I want to ask, but you know where the point of this whole conversation is going. So, first, let me ask you how can you tell me about when you first basically realized, if you have words for it, that you were the quote unquote son of the Undertaker? When it hit you in
Yeah,
that way?
yeah. A lot of people kind of have a similar thought. It's like, when did it click? When did it like, come to consciousness? I remember being a kid in like kindergarten, like pre-K kindergarten, and like one of my earliest memories was he came to pick me up and like I'm like basically like the what do you call that at the circus? Like the center, the MC. And like I'm in this pavilion at our elementary school, and like here he comes out to come and like pick me up from school, like super casual. But I remember like the greatest showman, just like, and here
Oh,
he is, my dad. And that feeling of like he's a superhero, right? Like they said it in the tribute. He's like Superman. He beats people up for a living. Like
yeah.
as a kid, you couldn't ask for a cooler father. But it also I think came with like I was just overwhelmed and like uh excitement was spilling over because like I didn't get to see him very often. So when he was around, it was just like I don't know, amplified and probably yeah, from like the youngest age, I think like 5 or 6 really. Just being so excited to see him and realizing that like people recognize him, like they know him for this, what he is known for was one of my I look back on it and I just think that was really really funny and sweet as a
It's
as a
a
little
it's
as
a
a little wee shogun.
happy little moment there. But I know, or I would imagine, I should say, that it wasn't always full of happy little moments. And I want to say before I even continue, how comfortable are you with like getting a little bit dark if it's dark, or sad if it's sad? You feel comfortable to tell me if you don't want to answer any questions.
Buddy, take me to Death Valley. Let's go. I'm ready. I was born in it.
So
No,
I
I'm
I
I'm
mean
comfortable with
the
it.
the experience that you're talking about well, he wasn't there a lot. I mean, I'm sure that is just the very tip of the iceberg. We're talking about somebody who, in that video package, everyone was saying he was always on the road, or he was married to his work. He was so loyal to his work. Uh, can you tell me about when you first started realizing that that loyalty to work maybe didn't match his loyalty to a more traditional father role?
Yeah. Before I answer, let me be 100% crystal clear on this. We are totally good now. This is not me coming out here to bash him or paint him as some, you know, anything other than who he is, and our relationship. I will tell you is good. I'm okay. We're all set on all of that. But it does speak to my authenticity, and it is my life and my experience with it. Um, I remember when my parents split, and a lot of that had to do with the long hours, the travel, and all of that. We talked a little bit about it offline, but it was like, he gave so much to it. Clearly, I mean, that's like what an incredible legacy that a lot of people who approach me and have these assumptions about our relationship and what that life must have been like. Like they think I went to every show and I was,
Right.
traveling and on the road and how cool that is. People do not often consider the cost. And the cost was that while you are giving yourself wholly to this business, your family is back at home waiting for you and hoping that, after the big tombstone pile drivers and all the choke slams and everything, that he comes home. Because like a lot of people will also, say, oh, wrestling's not real, it's fake, they stomp punch and blah blah blah, breakaway tables. Yeah, but he's also an incredibly big guy. And like they were saying, to do this stuff was just so far beyond, I think. He performed way above like what his weight class was, and he was doing things that people just couldn't believe. And physically, the toll that that does take on your body, to quote one of my all-time favorite videos, is the guy, he's at like the conference and he's like, it's real to me, damn it.
Yeah, right,
If
right.
you see, if you
That
know
was
what I'm
me my
talking
whole
about.
life, by the way. Yeah,
Yeah, right.
yeah.
Just
As a fan.
vehemently, like it's so real when you're there, and electric when you're on the ground floor and at the stage. All of that to say, it hit me probably just before like 10, 12, that like, oh, this is going to be different. Like my life is not going to be like your average kid growing up. And it was very, very quickly evident, probably around the time like I hit middle school. And it was just like suddenly, immediately, like when you are thrust with, who are you and what is your identity? And everyone is already like approaching you and asking you about him and what are you going to do following. And like I said, like it doesn't happen often, but the legacy, that people love to put the kids up with the parents and that industry, and it has happened. But I'll say that much for right now. I think I answered your question.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. So you're young, you're realizing all this stuff. It's such a mix of, I mean, it's somewhat, obviously it's impossible for me to envision myself having that life, but as someone who grew up a fan of wrestling and knowing who your father was since I was forever, I think since the 2 days after I was freaking born, I had a wrestling family. We grew up in the culture of all of that. I would imagine if I had a friend, if we were talking, but we were in elementary school and I learned that, it would change the way I spoke to you or impact it in some way. And I'm glad that you highlighted that we are talking about, and it's all going to come together like a nice little cone of authenticity. But I want to start with the experiences that are the opposite of that, because I think it's
Yep.
important for people to recognize how far they come, how far you've come, how far anyone has to come on a journey where you start out in the shadow of somebody else. And so I'm curious, what were your friendships like growing up? And did you have friendships that were impacted? Did you have any friendships that weren't impacted by this?
Yeah. So imagine this: the people that I got along with didn't really give a shit about wrestling. They were
Okay.
like, cool, your dad's a wrestler. All right. Like, fun fact. And that's kind of, again, like how I've carried myself is it's just that it really has almost zero perks. And, just living my life normally, my friends and everyone that, knows me for me, who I am, knows that it has no bearing on like how I carry myself and my character. And I don't ever bring it up. They're usually the ones that like remind me, and you would think I would never forget, but sometimes
Yeah.
I do. And they, it's like, oh, be careful, his dad's gonna come and choke slam you, like,
Right.
it's, busting my chops a little bit. But my friendships really, I think I would say actually as a perk, this is interesting to think about. When you are always kind of met, or I'll say when you meet people and they're big fans, obviously, that's the first thing they want to tell you. And it's very sweet. And like Mom Boy, they said something earlier that just really resonates with me and my experiences growing up with it. So many people approach it with adoration and respect and kindness and fond memories of growing up watching him at home with their families, you included.
Yeah.
So many people lead with that. Sometimes, though, people lead with the expectation that I'm just giving out freebies. I got signed autograph. You want a picture? You want a monogram belt?
Oh
You want the
God.
tights? You want an
I didn't
action
even think
figure?
about that. Yeah.
By the
Yeah.
way, I'm selling these 20-0 WrestleMania action figures for $49.99 in the chat. If you DM me, I can send them to you. 2 for 30.
Yeah.
No,
Exclamation mark enter to be entered into the
enter
giveaway.
to no, it's like they expect something of you. They expect that. That's like, hey, can I get a autograph? Can I get some merch? Can I meet him? Can you call him right now? Like, no, jag off. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
that's
Right.
not the relationship that we had. And so, like, the people that I got along with, never obviously like unless they were just joking or busting my chops up a little bit. I gained the ability to figure out very quickly when someone wanted to be my friend because of my authentic self and who I am and beyond who my family members are, and if they just wanted something. And that I remember like that feeling of like I could kind of feel people out a lot quicker that way. And again, it's how you present yourself. It's how you approach and you meet somebody. Their intentions become known or maybe unknown, and they lead with like, they're buddy. They're very friendly with me because they want something, or they think, 2 degrees of separation is enough for them to say they have a claim to fame. Hey, I know the guy. Can you do something for me? Like, I
Right.
went to school with the kid. What do you think about this?
But this is kind of,
It,
it speaks to something that I'm curious about, which is that you like, if I'm hearing you right, you had an internal compass that was pointing you towards authenticity even when you were young. Because I think a lot of
always.
kids, if my dad was the Undertaker, and in many ways he was in my
Yeah.
life, Dad, if you're watching this, you were my Undertaker. Okay. And I love you.
Fathership.
Love you. If my dad was the Undertaker, or let's just say if anyone's dad was the Undertaker, I could see a temptation of a young kid to use it to a like a manipulative advantage. Yeah, sure, I can give you a couple whatever signed things, and if you'll be my friend, and if you'll do this, and were you ever steered in that direction? Did you always have this I'm looking toward my own authenticity kind of compass?
Yeah, I think very, again, young age and not really in tune with that sense of self yet. I think, yeah, like obviously, like that's the most alluring path. Look what your father is doing with his work and people approaching you all the time. Like, how could it not be appealing? But then it gets real. And then this is kind of where we go down the slope a little
I'm
bit.
freaking ready.
There's so much of it that I find out as an adult and as I grew up that like part of what like my parents' fears were me being out on these shows as a kid, like as a young child at like the height of that fame, and someone snatching me up. It happens. I mean, even today, it's real. Like I would have never even considered that as a kid. Obviously, like you think your parents are there with you, or you're around trusted adults, you're safe. No. And not to say it reflects every fan of the entertainment and in that business, but some people are wildly too passionate. And so a lot of the time, I think my default was to be guarded. It was to not engage, not to
Mm.
speak to it, to avoid it. Or if I got even like the smallest inkling of like, hey, this person is a big wrestling fan, you might want to can it, remove myself from the situation and call it a day. Very early on, there were not like moments like that where like someone grabbed me or, we were, trying to rush to get to a car. But I remember people coming up to us in restaurants. And it was one of the only times I ever remember seeing him really fucking mad. You think, the character and the persona is terrifying. Watching that man get fired up because he literally tells them, I'm here with my family. This is like one of the few times I get to be here with my kid and my personal time. Thank you for being a fan and thank you for allowing us to do this, but basically fuck off and like meaning it, like you need to back off right now. And thank God he's a gargantuan freaking giant born lineage human being because he scared a lot of people off, I think, being real. It's like, dude, not now. Or he would tell him, like, once we're done or like wherever we're out and we're doing stuff together as a family, I'll get you at the end. I'll sign whatever you want. Please let me have this. And then that reinforces that like, oh, don't lead with this. Do not just start shouting from the rooftops. Here he is. Here, like that little kid used to be, how little Shogundy used to think about it.
So I'm wondering if that made you a little nervous in general as a person, if and introverted. When I'm thinking about that, if I put myself in that place, I'm kind of learning energetically that there's a lot of fear there. Your position and your family and your father and this unique relationship puts you in kind of potentially harm's way. Did that lead to you pulling in a little bit, a little introversion?
At the start, yeah. And when it starts like really setting in how big of a persona and immediately identifiable and like they connect the dots and you see it, their eyes light up and like, that's so cool. I turned inward at first. And then it's so funny too, because then I thought about like growing up and how like, how some people really like to, or you hear about people who kind of never grew out of their like high school self or
Oh,
they're
sure.
stuck in high school. They
Sure.
live with this, I guess, idea of they peaked and then they didn't ever, that was kind of it for them. And so they stay in that mentality or they wish they could go back and relive it. Man, Vince, I did everything I ever wanted to in high school. And it had nothing really like it was nothing was that I did was enabled by the fact that my father was who he was. I just was like, I want to do it all. I was in the arts, every art class I could have gotten. We had tech classes. I was in theater group. I actually got a lead role in our high school play. We actually did Beauty and the Beast, which
Oh,
is
no
like
kidding.
super full circle for my my namesake, and was just like I was in jazz band. I did all the different kinds of sports. I was captain of the bowling team.
Fuck
Bing!
Bing, dude. That is a
I did
bing.
everything. I pushed myself and I did so much to make my life my own and do my own things, pursue my own interests. I never would want to go back to high school because I did it. I did everything. I got the most
Wow.
out of it.
Talk to
I
me
was
about the go ahead.
yeah. Oh, I was just gonna say. I also remember for a stint, I got to be our like mascot. I got to put on like the suit and run around and do all the cheers and stuff. Like I don't know. Something about it was just like I got to do it all. I
What's
had no
weird about
regrets.
this and what's really full circle is that the mascot was actually Gon of your high
Yeah,
school, which was fucking
yeah.
unbelievable. Shogundy was
I
running
know.
around literally before he was created on the show as a big Gungonian fucking bottle of Bailey's walking around. And
Yeah, I mean, as a high schooler, there been some controversy there, but it.
You had
Anyways,
everybody in the stands going 51, 51.
51.
Meanwhile,
Thank
they're
you,
like
gone,
14.
gone.
Everyone's like, yeah, 14, 15. So Was the motor that drove you towards pursuing all the things that you wanted to pursue, particularly in high school and your adolescence, was it satisfied and happy to do these things, or was it dying to do them to get out from under his shadow?
Mm, you ask really good questions, buddy. Man, I think that initially I wanted so badly to escape the shadow. If I'm being 100% real and transparent, I was so fiercely about my own independent life and my own authentic identity that I just, not to say that I was like, a wild child, getting into trouble and just doing anything like as a cry for attention. It was more about me living a life independent of all of that. I wouldn't have touched it with a 10-foot pole. I had no interest in joining the high school wrestling team, which we had. And that coach was on me every year asking about, when are you going to join? When are you going to join? When are we going to
Oh.
get you in here? Like,
I would
I
imagine
wouldn't.
high school is where a lot of that came out. Are you going to be a
Yeah.
wrestler? Are you going to be like, how
Oh.
tall are you? How tall are you?
On a good day, 6'1", 6'2".
Okay, so you have some height there. And
Yeah.
and people know who you are, and now it's high school, and now coaches are involved, and you sound like you definitely got your fair share of that.
Yeah, I think it was just always kind of, again, people put you in that box and they assume like, well, yeah, he's going to be an athlete. Look at him. He's got the frame. He looks just fucking like him. Like, wouldn't that just be perfect? Wouldn't that just be little Edward Scissorhands cookie cutter house perfect? All the fucking houses in a row down on the
Yeah.
lane, And it's like in my head, I'm like, fuck that. I want to be an artist,
Oh,
baby. I want to
wow.
make shit. I want to do creative stuff. I don't want to be told what character I am. I want to be as many characters as I want to be.
Wow.
Like
Well said.
so
Let's fly the
fiercely.
frickin' Captain Kirks in the chat, because really well said. I don't want to
Yeah,
told to be the character. I want to be however many characters I want to be. What a beautiful statement. I think a lot of us, myself included, to be honest, who live in the shadow of somebody else, of some other creator. I love my brother more than life, but Bad Blando, I get messages every single day of people coming in asking me if I am this way that he is, or if I'm going to do this thing that he does. And whether it's your brother, your parents, a teacher, anybody, what a beautiful thing that you just said. You want to be all the characters that you can be, that you want to be. Let me put on my little therapy hat and walk you back to something that you just said that's got me interested. And you can tell me I'm wrong, or you can tell me that I'm off base. Um, Tony B,
Hang on, I gotta approve Tony Beeswax message about foot fetish. Sorry, go ahead.
great, great.
Go ahead.
Um, by the way, everybody, I want to say that I see your messages coming through in the channel point alert called Interview Queue. If you have a question for Shogundy, use Interview Queue. We'll get to a bunch of them at the end. If Sleed Meat is in the chat right now, if Sleed Meat is watching, thank you very much for the 3 months of subbing. And I see Neon Sock and Romedy and Chris Mack. All these questions, we are going to get to them. I am seeing them. But let me pull you back and put my therapist hat on. Now we're talking, and you're in your high school kind of state of mind. And you said, I didn't want to touch any of that with a 10-foot pole. When I think of neutral motivation, I don't necessarily think of that heavy of language. I didn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole. You're speaking a lot about you had an authentic pursuit of yourself, and you're telling us you were doing bowling and illustrating and art. You want to be an artist. But I didn't want to touch that with a 10-foot pole implies to me that maybe there was some anger.
Yeah, I think early on, misinformed, misguided. There was residual anger because, oh man, your sweet little old lady video already compromised me emotionally, and just what she was saying about go with the flow and all of this today. I think, yeah, I was mad because all of the fame and all of the glory and reputation and legacy that comes with that, man. It's like Why why was home and why was family not enough? And again, to reiterate, we're good.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
This
No,
is this
it's
is
only natural that you would ask that. It's only natural that you would have that in you buried. I mean, people that whose fathers aren't the Undertaker wonder that when their dad goes to the grocery store and works and they don't see him. It's a very human thing you're saying. Do
yeah.
you want to stick with that for a minute? Is that something you consciously remember thinking a lot in high school?
Yeah, and it's that era of your life where you're a teenager, you're coming into your own consciousness and sense of self and all of that, and you're figuring things out, and then you get kind of, you know, I was one of the kids who just no matter what was going on, I just always wanted to grow up. I always wanted to be an adult, and you think you know everything, and fuck what anybody else says. This is my world. I'm living in it. Freaking self-pilled. And
Mhm.
I was mad. I was upset because like I was doing so much for me and living my life and trying to be authentic and doing all of these great things. I wasn't like valedictorian or anything. I could have honestly cared less. I couldn't have cared less about my grades. Because art school, bing,
Dang, me too.
didn't matter, bing. I I just felt so much like, when you think you know everything and you're a kid and teenager years and you're just like, why are we not good enough, man? Like, why is this and being home and being with us, like, why is that not just as alluring as all of the fame? And like, to each their own. And again, we're good, we're fine, we're hashed it all out, we're gravy. Relationship is much better now, but yeah, there you nailed it, man. It was. I think some of that was fueled by anger and like a little bit of resentment for wishing that he was there to witness it. And I will say, as a follow up, just to confirm, seeing him do it now with my younger siblings is one of the most full circle, like all the pieces come together and like so fulfilled and happy and joyful for him, and to see him like being a capital F father
Wow.
with them is so special, dude. I,
And
I I would
and
I would even go as far to say it's worth it now.
And not even because you are necessarily living vicariously through your siblings, but it sounds like you're more so looking at him and what he is able to do now. That's a very kind of elevated position to view this from.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how long it took you to get there from the angry high school kid who anyone not that and by the way that's a misrepresentation of what you said by a high school kid who had anger about this
Yeah.
to viewing him now excited for him, not even for you, not even like for him.
Yeah.
What was the
Because
how did you get there?
Yeah, because I think after I graduated and found out how close we were in proximity to each other when I went to college, and around that time is you're like hyper independent. You are fully thrown into the world and you are figuring out who you are, how you want to live your life, how you carry yourself. And it just so happened that around that time, I went to Full Sail in Florida, that they picked up the NXT program. And I
Oh.
was like, oh, here we go.
Oh.
And they're training people to do the lights and all of the, events and stuff. Like I couldn't escape it. And like it's a reminder. It's like, here it is again, right in my face. And everybody assumes, oh, he's on a full ride because his daddy paid the way. He did, but that was not the reason why I went there, very grateful, but it just so happened to play out that way. There's so many times in my life where it's like I genuinely do forget sometimes, and then I get reminded of it, and that used to, I'll say past tense, that rage, that little anger gremlin in me comes back up. That little kid who was so upset. He's like, man, like, here we go again. Why? Was it just, and then I'd say after I come home, I graduate and then like I got to work a day job, couldn't break in right away to all of the triple A. I couldn't get in on Bethesda and Bungie and freaking, I sent my applications out everywhere. And in the meantime, I'm waiting tables. I'm working. I started fixing phones. And so, like, kind of put all that stuff on the back burner a little bit. But I forgot again. And then here it comes, like, I don't know, 3, 4 years ago at this point. I reached this. I would even say it was like enlightenment. It was just like, dude, like what happened? Like I grew up. I lived, my whole childhood, and like so many times I remember like going to visit and going into the airports and traveling and visiting and trying to meet him at shows and stuff, and it's like, man, like we hashed it out and we're good, but I mean, truly, like less than 5 years ago, like we came to an
Oh, wow.
understanding. He put a lot more in perspective for me that again, I had no clue about, what was going on when, my parents were together, and um really just like quelled all of that uh anger and, frustration. And then again, it's like seeing him now with my younger siblings. I know that doing all of this and how dedicated he is. Not even was, dude. He still is just so about that work, that ethic, that drive. I don't know many people in this world like him who are just 100% motivated and driven to to go and get it and make it real and be there, like give
Even in
everything to himself.
I mean, he's got a podcast, and he's seemingly creating like a whole brand off of that. He definitely is an eat, sleep, breather. I have questions about, but don't want to overstep, so you tell me. You've made a few allusions to this time when you guys hashed it out. So you have
Yep.
this kind of, and it seemingly was a handful of years ago, not all that long ago. Um, I don't need the details of that. I don't think anybody does, but I'm curious because I would ask anyone this. Is he someone that was receptive to you?
Yeah. One of the craziest parts about all of this, and what hit me like a ton of bricks, because like again, I won't give all the details about it, but I was ready. Like I was ready to talk about all of it. We had moments and times where like, it was just time was so fleeting. I wanted so badly to just be there with him and not make it about, like, hey dad, like, why did you go and do all of this? Like what happened to you and mom and all of that stuff that I wanted so desperately to talk about. Um, and it just bubbled up again. And I remember I sat down, I wrote him 9 full pages of Shogungan lyrics and spit
Whoa.
all of it at him all at once. It just like the levee burst.
Okay, wait a minute.
Eh,
Can you put me in the moment? What do you say? Like, hey, is this what instigates the sit down, like the conversation that you've been
yeah,
alluding to? So
yeah.
you're writing on a piece of paper, or you're writing in a text message, or what are you doing?
Typing it all out. It took me a few weeks to really like just sit and think with all of the
Wow.
thoughts, and I would get overwhelmed and just like I got to go back to work. I would come
Wait,
back
wait,
home.
wait,
I'd
wait, wait,
stay up
wait. This
late.
is I need to live in this moment. So
Yeah.
what was exactly, if you remember, what's the incident that, because this is almost like I mean, there's a negative connotation to it, but I mean it more so in like a coming of age connotation. This is like a final boss conversation you're leading up to have. Sometimes with our parents, we are fortunate to be able to, I don't even know how to say it. Sit them down and be like, hey, here's all my shit, right? Here's me. I want to connect with you. I don't want to feel the way that I felt. Can we sit down and have this final boss confrontational conversation? Not all parents are receptive to that. So that's why I asked if he was receptive. But
Mhm.
what kickstarted the need to do that? Do you remember an incident where you're like, I'm going to sit down and write 9 pages?
Yeah. Um, Remind me too afterwards that there was a conversation we actually had 2 days ago that I wanted to share with
Okay.
you, and
Okay.
you might have heard it yesterday. But yeah, so there was a moment that hit. I won't say exactly what it is, just for respect and privacy. But I remember the feelings of, you know what? Like I have always lived my life in a way where I was hesitant to engage with fans or people who respected and loved him, and always kind of played my cards close to the chest, but worked so hard to be my own person, to be the most authentic version of myself I felt like I could. And a lot of that comes with, again, I kind of spoke on it, the limited amount of times that we had to be together and be a family or go and visit and see him. And so I still kind of do actually. This is a little bit more insight into me. I have this residual anxiety with phone calls. Like talking on the phone is hard for me. Texting is fine. Video, like chat,
Sure.
is like this is fine. But something about getting phone calls, I learned and I
Ooh.
reflected and realized phone calls were so important growing up because you never know when it was going to be the moment comes where you have an opportunity to go and spend time with your parent. And I had to make sure that I had nothing else going on. Like I wanted to make sure that my schedule was free and clear. So when that moment came up, I could leap to that airport and get on that plane and go and see him. And I lived like that for so long that again, it's like these reminders come up and I start kind of getting a little bit like self-loathing and like, oh God, like here's that anger coming up, that teenage angst overflowing. And then there was a moment that like I don't know, it all clicks. It's like waking up and you're like, dude, you have held on for this relationship and put yourself in like the lobby, like the loading screen. Well, if we're going to go with the video game
Yeah.
metaphors, like I was in loading, waiting for that opportunity to be the best son that I could be and be ready to be a part of his family when he was ready and when it was time to make that trip that I didn't want to do it anymore. I didn't want to just constantly put my life on hold for the chance at catching up and making up for lost time, which is
Mm.
just so backwards because what you're doing is compromising yourself and you're not living in the present moment. Every moment that I got, I just kind of felt like, how much time has been passed and missed and moments and memories and things that like, I put my current life on hold and I just told him, I was like, buddy, we gotta talk.
Wow.
Like man to man, I gotta get this out because like it's just not working anymore.
Wow.
And to
Wow.
follow up again on what you were hitting on, like freaking laser accuracy on this and living in that moment again, like you want to sit in it with me, I'll take you there.
Mhm.
He was he surprised me in a way that transcends all expectations of going into that moment, that confrontation, that like final boss battle where you are putting all your armor and you're drinking your juices and your potions and casting the spells and getting ready to, power up and do your final Kamehameha moment. And he was so receptive. He blew me away because I went for 9 pages, bars, just all of it comes unglued. And there were a few times I could tell he like wanted to be like, actually, no, but no, that didn't happen.
So this was a phone
He,
call?
no, I met it. Like we met, like he came
Where
to
do you
see
go
me.
for that? Like, wanna meet me at Applebee's and have the showdown?
Strangely, it was a Buffalo Wild Wings.
Oh, fuck yes. Okay. So that you
No,
say
he came and stayed at a hotel and when met him, like drove over and,
so
you know,
did you bring what you wrote, like sheets of
I
paper?
I had it on my
Oh,
phone,
on your
yeah.
phone.
Yeah.
And so
And I just
you're sitting with him and you're like, I need to read this. And he
yeah.
let you, despite wanting to jump in sometimes, he let you read 9 pages of self-realization in the final boss of this moment.
Yeah, and took it all in stride, and what's so crazy about it is what I had never considered was that the things that developed in my life and my mental health and how my self dialogue. I've always been my own worst enemy in everything that I do. No one could ever tear me down. No one could ever make an Undertaker joke that would, piss me off or set me off. I was already all doing that to myself. He had the same thing. He had the same brain. However, fucking biology and human chemistry works and like the traits that you pass on, he suffered from that same self-talk and how he had dialogue with himself. He identified it, he owned it, he reassured me of it and like was so proud of me for being able to put it into words in a way that he could not. And he said, explicitly, like, that was something he felt like he could never have done with his father. And I'm trying so hard. I'm welling up, but like this is real. It just he blew me away with how receptive he was, and it made for such a relief and a moment of like pure, absolutely like pure distilled clarity. And I was like unbothered for a month after that. Like you can imagine just like this weight, 100 kilograms just drops off of your body, and you're just like, oh, finally I got that over with. And now I just get to be me.
Wow.
Now we actually get to have a real relationship, and we are authentic when we talk to each other. It is real. It is not superfluous. It is not trying to play the role of father and son and
Mm.
make up for lost time. We just are. We just are the people that we are. And we are so good, and everything just like the dust settled. And then now I get to see my entire life before me. And man, like,
In the sun.
yeah,
What I have so I mean I admire you so much for that. The There are people, I can think of my own parents. There are people in this world who will live their entire lives never putting on the armor, stepping into the arena, and showing what I believe is the truest strength, which is self advocacy in the face of a lifetime of, you know, maybe even in your own head or however it came out, a lifetime of fear about being you, to put yourself in the room. I think a lot of people with their parents, with their teachers, with their bosses, they never allow themselves to exist in the room the way that you forced into existence in that room. And what a beautiful way to do it. You said it took you weeks to write what you were writing down?
yeah, it was, I kept, there was stuff I wanted to say that I wanted to like punctuate and really like I rehearsed it like you
Wow.
would for a role, like for a character. And then I was like, that just feels so mean and hurtful, and it's not the point that I want to get across. I scrapped half of it, rewrote it, like reorganized it. I feel like a dozen different times. And finally I just got to the point where like, okay, it's all here. And I call him and I'm like, I'm ready. Let's go. Cue the music.
Wow. Wow. And for as yeah,
Bong.
really. And for him to say like that he never could have done that with his father. And we talk about strength
Yeah.
and we talk about I mean, this is strength on a whole different level. You know, he might have been throwing mankind off Hell in a Cell. Here you are being you in the face of anything but, in the face of a lifetime of the perhaps feeling of the opposite. What might you say to people who have yet to put those words on those pages, to people who are feeling constricted around their parents? They feel they can't be themselves around a shadow figure, a boss, parents, siblings, friends, whoever. People that would benefit so much from putting themselves onto the pages like you did and then stepping into the arena. What would you say to people that want to make that step but are maybe hesitant to?
I think just in the sheer moment of clarity and realizing, like however you felt about, in this case, my dad, and all of these emotions and everything that I carried literally like a just a backpack of dead weight. If anybody is struggling with it, and everyone's journey is different. I know it's not a universal applicant. It's not going to work for every single person in every situation, but for me, and what helped and what really kind of put me at ease, I think any parent worth their weight in salt wants what's best for their kids always. They all have different ways of going about it. I think a lot want to do differently than their parents did, or they don't want to put them through the same trauma and the same difficulty. They want to put them up. They should, I would say. Maybe not every
Sure.
parent is like this, but if you're struggling with confrontation or feeling like there was something unresolved from your childhood or your past, and they may not be as receptive as he was, but like doing that, owning it, speaking to it, taking the time to write it down too has always helped me. Like it always feels like a cliche. It's like you should write down your thoughts and pros and cons, but really it does. It helps me organize my monkey mind and all the other thoughts that invade, and just doing it, and then it's done. Like instead of worrying about it and being afraid of the outcome, or like, I think just doing it gave me such peace. And then how he responded, and he realizes, you are my son. You are just like me in so many ways. And him confirming the same struggles and the same problems I think he probably had when he was my age growing up. His dad wasn't, an international superstar. He worked at a newspaper company and was like an editor for their local newspaper. But like those feelings of like, hey, dad, like, I don't like the way that you did this thing, and approaching it, like, I think it did so much for him too. I think it did a lot for his son to come to him and say, hey, this is who I am now. This is how I want this relationship to go. These are my boundaries. These are my expectations. And I want you to know, my main goal from that was to let him know I am okay now. I made sense of it. And I just wanted him to understand where I'm coming from and why it was so hard for me, I think, to speak to it. And doing that, I think the light came on for him too. And it was like, that's what it was. And he sees himself in me, and it's the same struggle, but generations apart. Like that made it like, of course you do. Like, yeah, that's where it comes from, man. It wasn't from mom. I had so many conversations with mom growing up about it. Her and I were, like,
Yeah.
two peas in a pod, but it was like with him, he was an enigma, and like he played that character, the enigma, the mysterious dark force from Death Valley. Like, how poetic, right? And yeah, I think for anybody else struggling with it, my hope, and remembered what I wanted to say too, is that this conversation, if there is someone who's struggling with confronting your parents or your authentic self, you're trying to find it, you feel like something is holding you back. There was such clarity that came from doing it and seeing his reaction, good or bad. I fully prepared myself for
Yes,
both. Or
I'm
any,
so glad you said that, because the growth and you said you felt like unbothered for a month afterwards. That, like, flying off the ground feeling, I really believe that was not because of his reaction. That was because of your presence. That was because of your self advocacy and your courage. And when you speak your identity into the world, it does feel like that. Dr. Ellen Langer, who we talk about all the time, she's a psychology professor at Harvard, talks about being present, being truly present is energy begetting. So when you can be present in a relationship dynamic where maybe you haven't been present in that way before, it is energizing and invigorating in a way that I think would have been tremendously healing, maybe even if his reception wasn't as great as it was. And I would like to say that for anybody out there too. Sometimes it's just about you said the damn thing.
did it. You went and you got it. Like, that did so much. And I think it advocated not only for myself, but for the younger eras of Shogungan, and the teenage angst was quelled, and the young kid who wanted nothing more than to just do something like that just came full circle. It all fell into place, and his reaction was incredible, and his receptiveness to it blew me away. But since then, I'm just I'm just me, man. It's all good.
I
It's all
have
good
a
now.
lot. I want the tail end of this to be about just you, and I have a lot of questions about
Mhm.
what just you, who is now, who is just you. Now you're you, and what like I want to know so much more about that. But before we do, two things. I want to remind you about the thing that you're alluding to that you want to remember saying,
Yeah.
and then I would like to address some of the questions that are flying in. We don't have animated Louie letting us know, but there are plenty of interview queue channel point questions for you. And folks, if you have questions for Shogundy, please use the interview queue channel point redeem.
Yeah, perfect segue because I've been looking and kind of peeking at the chat here and there. You all are so sweet. I want to tell you wholeheartedly and as sincere gets, the only reason why I am here today and the only reason why I feel comfortable enough doing this is because of Vince and how you have carried yourself in a way that is so open and warm and inviting. The way that that woman approached you was everything about why I felt comfortable doing this today. And it's everything about the community that's just welcomed me for me, who I am now versus who I was then. Man, it it's really special to find your place. And I've, you know, not met any of you in person, but you make me feel like, what I'm doing is right. What I'm doing is authentic. What I'm doing is me. And it just serendipity overflowing and just overwhelming at times. I wouldn't be here and I wouldn't do this if I didn't think there was a mental health spin. And I know that's what we talked about because that's all I wanted. It's all I wanted. I wanted people to know that I wasn't just his son. I was someone who was a dreamer. Chris Mack knows why I think what I'm doing now is so important. And what we're doing now is so important is because it's changing people's lives. Whether you are aware of it or you're not, or you're here and you're hanging out and you're lurking, it's just, man. I called him 2 days ago and I'm gonna push it back down again.
Me too.
Because
Me too.
it it really brings home what this is about today. I called him and I felt so bad. He called me on my birthday and I was in the air. I was flying and I didn't even get the notification, but he texted me. And then I blink and 2 weeks go by and I'm like, oh, well, now look at me. I'm the father not returning the call, kidding. But um, I call him back and left him a voicemail and then I get on the phone with him 2 days ago. And I told him, I was like, Dad, it's so funny how life works. And I have found myself amongst my peers in an arena that I would have never guessed. I would have never been able to explain to you how surreal it is to be here now and talking with you specifically and all of you in the chat about this. And I feel so at ease and I feel so at peace. And not only that, but I feel like what I'm doing now is just so like what I dreamed up and what I wanted to do when that was time to ask myself, what are you going to be? What do you want to do? Everybody's asking you, what are you going to do? Are you going to put on the tights? Are you going to go to all the NXT events? Are you going to, put the eyeliner on and dye your hair black and follow the legacy? Are you going to do something more authentic? Are you going to be you? Are you going to be an artist? Are you going to pursue this career in video game art? And that made the most sense to me at the time. But how incredible now, all these years later, to be here talking about it, sharing my authentic self with all of you, and getting back to the dreams that I had to do this, to talk about my journey, my experiences, to help other people get through it, to inspire them, to create things, to tell stories and do things that I always wanted to do. And he was fired up, dude. I could tell he called me and he was like just waking up, but he woke up and he was like, son, I cannot tell you how amazing it is to hear the passion and the excitement and the joy in your voice. And I told him, there's this guy, he does this show. I'm going to go on there. I'm going to talk about this. And he's like, absolutely. I think you should. And one of the most powerful things I think I've ever heard him say to me and about, being who I am and what my dreams are. He said, I can tell that this is important to you. I can tell that you're fired up and you're motivated and you want to go and get it. He said, go get it, son. Don't let it go. And to know now, again, like we're good and like we understand each other, and knowing the kind of workhorse and motivated individual that he is, I think he sees it in me and he knows that like I have a part of that in me too. Man, what a crazy roller coaster ride my life has been. And I tell people all the time, it is such a charmed life. Sometimes it's good, sometimes it's bad, but I don't think I ever would have met you. And I don't think it would have made such an impact on my life, because what you're doing now with this show and with everyone here in this community is everything that my younger self wanted for me. So thank you. And sincerely, everyone, thank you for all of the kind words and all of the just excitement and joy and hype and everything that you've shared today with me and Vince and everyone. It's unbelievable, man.
Fuck you.
Did I do it? Did I get him, chat?
Oh man,
Sybil, did I punch him in the gut hard enough for you?
There's no way. There's just simply no way that this is going to be the last time that you're here, that we're talking in this way. You're going to absolutely have to keep coming back, because this is really good. Let me say something. I told the story earlier about how I kind of gleefully ran into my room the night that we first started DMing after I had been in your streams for a while.
Yeah.
And I was like, when I explained that to my wife, I have this new friend, long before I knew any percent of everything you just said, there was something so naturally grounded about you, and the chemistry was just there in a way that is just, talk about divine intervention. I mean, I don't want to get that weird about it necessarily, but like, I made a joke, you made the same style of joke back. We spoke the same language. We existed. We have a completely different upbringing, a completely different childhood, different, I mean, almost virtually everything, except for all of a sudden, here we are speaking the same language. We start finding out we play the same video games. Oh, you had this experience. You had that. You like this show.
Yeah.
I like that show. And now we're getting into the beauty of this Twitch thing, which is that it lets you connect. For the people out there who feel like you speak a language that maybe some people in your life don't speak, and it's been difficult to connect. To me, that's the most beautiful thing about all of this, about having you on, is we're friends and we're connecting, and two completely different lives all of a sudden are united, and we're speaking to everybody, and to be a part of this community. All that nice stuff that you were saying about me in the show, I throw it back on you tenfold. I throw it back on everybody in the community tenfold, because none of this would exist. We're all a part of this. Like Art in Jest says, talks about community creation and community driven art. Cartoon Therapy is a community driven piece. We're all together in this office talking about these things, and it wouldn't be the way it is without all of you. And Shogundy, dude, I fucking love you, man. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for coming into my life, regardless of the history and everything. You've changed the game for me on a friendship level. You've changed the game on a connection level. And it's a testament to you and your character.
I fucking love you and everything that you do. And I'm so fucking pumped. Let's do this 5 days a week. We're gonna come
5 days
back.
a
We're
week.
gonna
Non-stop streaming. Actually, forget about 5 days. As soon as I said it, I realized it's 7 days. It's 24 hour. Listen.
Yep. Actually, we're never going to stop the stream, because we're just going to talk forever.
I want to hear a little bit about your stream, about your life, But I want to
Yeah.
end on the note of you. And I have a feeling that a lot of questions might be about the stories that we were just talking about. So let me
Yeah.
get a few questions going, folks. If you want to use the interview queue, channel point, alert, redeem, whatever the fuck it is, go ahead and use it, and I'll sift through the questions. We have a question that came in from Lucianus. Oh, we talked about this. How tall are you? You said 6'2". Chris Mack says, so Undertaker, we know his story, his job. Shogundy loves Pokemon. Can we discuss this?
Woo! Gotta catch 'em all.
Gotta catch 'em all.
Dude, something about that show just captivated me from day one. And I remember getting my first pack of Pokemon cards. And this little guy comes up in the shuffle, and I'm going through, and he's blowing bubbles out on this little rock.
Dude,
Freaking
you're
this
bringing me
little
there.
guy.
You're bringing me right there. Look at that.
Freaking Squirtle. Just, I don't know. I just like, I love these little guys. I love these little pocket monsters. And that was my fucking sanctuary. I was so enraptured in the gotta catch 'em all. That was my gospel. And I've just never been able to like get away from them. They just keep putting out bangers. Like there's 1,000 of these little assholes now, and they took all my money.
Dude, I think I had like hundreds and hundreds of hours per game on like Sapphire and Ruby and Emerald and Gold and Silver and Crystal. I was a poke freak. That was a helpful, imaginative world to escape into, especially for kids, that can help you realize, like you talked about, you want to be any character you want to be. The Pokemon universe is an abundance of that message. So many characters, so many ideas. I would bet you were drawing your own Pokemon and stuff like that as a kid, right?
Bing. Just absolutely. Like every part of it. I wanted to draw them. I wanted to be a Pokemon master. I wanted to catch them all. I didn't know about all the shinies and stuff until way later, but like video games were my escape. I was an only kid for such a long time. And, you know, like I didn't get to meet my siblings until after they were born, like my blood, my siblings from my dad, and like we talked about found family and like finding friends and similar interests and stuff. But like, yeah, video games just took me away. This my sanctuary and my home, and like where I felt most comfortable was just on that little square screen, just plugging away like hours and hours and hours. And now I stream it on Twitch and do my like a custom version of like a, you know, challenge of it. It's just wonderful. Like it's always kind of had a special place in my heart.
I was a kid laying under a blanket, and I was next to Tony Beeswax in the chat. And maybe Bad Blander 2 was down there, although he didn't give a shit about Pokemon, I don't think. And I had my Game Boy Advance SP under a blanket, and I remember the route I was on in Pokemon Sapphire. I saw a green Meryl, and I didn't know what a shiny Pokemon was. So I'm like, well, what? Well, I guess my shit's glitching, and I run away, and I have regretted that. That's my biggest regret in life, is I ran away from the only shiny I've ever seen in my life.
We gotta get you that Meryl. We gotta reclaim it. That's what the shiny hunters say. They go back and reclaim missed shinies from their childhood.
Yeah, I have to reclaim that amongst many other things from my childhood. But Meryl is on the first of the list. Neon Sock Media asks, has anyone ever said you're only an incredible Kaizo and art streamer because of your father? I'd be curious if anyone has tried to make that reach.
Yeah, you know, like I said, it doesn't happen often, but there are a few jagoffs that pop in and like, what are you gonna put on the tights? Undertaker. Like it just it's incessant, and that's why it's in my rules for my channel, is because like, hey, if you know, cool. Like, don't be a fucking Bing Lord. Just don't be. I literally said, don't be a weirdo. Like, just it's fine. We can acknowledge it, move on. Like, that's not what this is about here. But yeah, I mean, people will. No matter what, it's such an incredibly massive legacy. I know, like my kids are never gonna escape it. Like,
you want
their
kids?
grandpa was a superhero. I'm sorry, guys.
Do you want little Shogongons of your own?
Someday, yeah.
Someday.
I've been back and forth about it my whole life, again because of the relationship, and the idea of, not repeating the mistakes of the parents and all of that. And I mean, right now, definitely not, but eventually. I'm very keen on adoption,
Oh,
if you
dude,
must know.
give me a fucking break. Are we related? Are we brothers? What's going on here? So many of the
Yeah.
things you're saying, I'm like, that was me. I'm looking in a mirror. What is up
Yeah.
with that? What the hell?
Right back at you, dude. Like, stop copying me.
Everybody know I'm the adoption freak, not you. No,
No,
I want to
Vince.
adopt.
He's
No,
the adoption.
I'm gonna adopt.
Nope, I
No,
was
you,
the
I'm
one.
gonna
Nope, it's
adopt
me.
first.
That was
No,
me. It
I'm
was
gonna
me.
be the
It
only
was
one
me.
to adopt. Chris Mack asks, so once the big conversation happened with your dad, did it open you up creative wise, art wise? Did it make you strive differently at all in your life going forward in an artistic sense?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of artwork, this, that is such a deep reflection of self and vulnerability and putting yourself out there. And it's like if someone doesn't like your art, you feel like it's a personal attack on you. Or you post your artwork, and literally, I would get comments online saying, "You should stop this art bullshit and get in the ring and go against Triple H's kids and Bray Wyatt's son is there." Dude, just like it's always there's a redirect.
Imagine fucking being like that.
Yeah,
Nice
dude, and
artwork, but what if you burned it in a fire and instead you fought Triple H's son and then life was just in a big cycle? Okay.
yeah, okay, cool, blocked, banned, moving on. It unlocked, I think, a lot of ease and coming back to it naturally. I've always enjoyed sitting down and being, I call it, at the forge. Like I was in the forge all weekend working on stuff and just being someone at play. And you talk about it a lot, but it really rings true now, being like having uninhibited play,
Ah,
like allowing myself to do that. I think a long time I convinced myself, you know what? No one gives a shit. Who gives a shit about the
mhm.
artwork, right? Like you should do something else, or you need to do something more financially, sustainable, and all these other preconceived notions about, life and success and wealth and happiness. But like I never feel more at ease and I never feel more comfortable in myself when unless I'm like sitting down and making something, creating, doing something creative. If it's streaming, if it's artwork, if it's collaborating, if it's playing Dungeons and Dragons with all my little nerdy
Oh,
friends,
yeah.
like man, like it just making characters, right? Like that's literally the whole game. My brain is just like a Rolodex for unused D&D characters. I just have so many ideas that I want to get out there. So yeah, I think it made it a lot easier to sort through that and figure out, okay, what do I want to create? How do I want to go about and do that? And how do I want to present it and put it out there for people to, you know, get inspired and share their own stuff? I love seeing everyone here too when we do the draw alongs. Like
Yeah.
that is such an incredibly wholesome and inspiring thing, is just to see how many artists and people, talented people, are here and sharing their work so freely with everyone. It's like, yeah, dude, more of that, please.
Special thing when you can free yourself from the chains of it's not good enough as an artist and you can
Mm,
return to just having a sense of play. I was just telling Tony B, my sibling, this exact thing of like cartoon therapy. I used to beat the shit out of myself because my drawings were not technically good enough, or that they weren't on a Cal Arts level. And once you leave all that behind, like you said, and you just have a sense of play, that feeling is the greatest gift of all time to me.
ever. Like
Yeah.
nothing compares to it. I think more than that too, the collaboration and working with other like minds and just doing things together that are creative and just everything everything I learned, I did it by watching you, like it's just I see you guys putting just, your whole self, your whole ass into this stuff. And just man, like I don't know. I've been in and out on Twitch for I hit 8 years affiliate in February.
Oh,
And um the first year now, like this past year, I really started taking myself more seriously and putting more time in the forge and pumping stuff out and making, my artwork be a priority more than ever in my life. And look where it got me, dude. Freaking sitting in front of a mirror on a show
yeah,
about
really.
cartoons and mental health. Like Unreal.
Ketchup John Mustard asks, I don't have a he says, I guess he doesn't ask. I don't have a question. Hope that's okay. But I've got an estranged father. Your story made me tear up, making me want to reach out to him. Love your streams and who you are. Keep up the
Love
art.
you, buddy.
Catch 'em all. Ketchup
Yeah.
John Mustard. Fuck yeah, dude. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here. That's another incredible streamer, incredible part of the cartoon therapy community. And thank you for saying that. We've got so many more questions. I'm trying to get to as many as I can. Tony Beeswax asks 2 questions. First one is, have you ever said Bing in front of your dad?
Not yet.
Second question is, what are some of your favorite things to make art of?
Yeah, I have this really I keep coming back to symmetry art and mandalas a lot. Something about it, and I have a ton of them littered all over my pages. But something about them is just so easy for me to sit down and just get started. Like, I think Bob Ross is another huge inspo
We call him
because
Bing Ross on this show.
yeah, Bing Bing. Uh, he talks about, like when you're struggling with getting started, and sometimes you just got to mess it up, or like you just got to put something down on the blank piece of paper, and probably wildly misquoting him, but something about just starting with a mandala or a symmetry piece, and I lose myself in it. I get so just like I just start moving lines around and pulling shapes, and suddenly there's just this like tapestry in front of me, and I never go in with like a finished product in mind, but it gets me in that creative zone, and it's like, okay, I kind of like this shape. And dude, like the first time I really felt like compelled to draw, I remember, was watching Cowboy Bebop, and I remember being on like our home computer and trying to find Spike Spiegel like profile face picture, printed it out at home, and then I was like tracing his face, trying to draw him as best I could. I was doing Lugias, dude. I was doing Pokemons. I was drawing Pikachus and Dragon Ball Z characters like all day. We had class, and we would go and we would do all of our work at the first half of the day. It was it was a Montessori school, if you're familiar. Very small groups of kids with teachers who taught multiple subjects. We'd knock out all 7 subjects in the first half of the day, go to recess, and come back. We'd push our desks together with a big bucket of like markers and colored pencils and crayons and stuff. We would just draw comics like all afternoon. That's all we did. That is one of my most favorite memories growing up, was finding other creative kids. And we were just like, hey, do you like wrestling? Not really, but have you seen the new Pokemon? Yeah, let's fucking go. Let's draw it, man. And like,
so sick. That's so
Yeah.
The fact that you would even bring up Lugia. Like, it's just that's
Dude.
yet another one. I took the biggest Lugia pill of all time. My prized possession growing up was my Lugia holographic card, which I walked into a card shop. Get this. My AV Fathership took us into a card shop. If AV Fathership is still here, I would love for him to guess how much money he spent on Pokemon cards growing up. But he took us in. They had, sometimes card shops would have the like single sale cards, and they'd be some ridiculous price. And they had a Lugia for like $200, shiny, holographic. And I was like, is it possible to get him in a pack? And the guy, of course, was like, no, kid, the only way is if you buy him right here, right now. And I was like, okay. I looked at my dad. He's like, son, please, can you give me a break? So we get a pack. I get a pack. I sit down. I opened it up. I got the shiny Lugia in that pack. And I told that guy, fuck you. Life is a simulation. One day I'm going to be talking to Shogundy on a cartoon show. And what the fuck are you going to be doing, Jagoff? Nothing.
Got my shiny Lugia, bitch.
Green Giant says, and maybe this is the last one. I don't know if you saw this when I posted it earlier. I don't think I did. There are certainly a few of us in chat that can relate to the sentiments of the conversation. As someone who's tried to have similar final boss type confrontations with both of my parents, and neither of them giving me the same grace, space, humility, or consideration, I have to say that I'm so fucking happy for you, Shogundy. Thank you for coming on the show today and sharing your story with us.
That's thank you, yeah, for sharing. Everyone sharing. I've seen comments, people relating, and just feeling like that message speaks to you in some way, I could not put into words. I couldn't write 9 pages. I'd write more about that feeling of resonating and finding people who just they see you. They feel that like, this I'm sure a lot of people were under the impression this was just going to be a bit or like, guys,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, actually my dad is not the Undertaker. It's actually Chris Mack. And they would have just, like Chris Mack is my dad.
Yeah. I wonder how many people thought when you held up the action figure box that was going to be the whole interview. Hello.
And then,
yeah, we're doing that.
Rest in peace. I thought about it, but I knew I was like, before we go on, I was like, ooh, I got all the merch, and then I'm gonna do the little thing, like moment of inspiration there. But yeah, I think to that comment, it sincerely has done so much for me to now be able to be in among my peers and the people that I think make me feel like this is okay to talk about. You don't need to be, worried or fearful or, people are going to treat me differently. Like I told you, I was like, I don't do this to garner more respect or more infamy or whatever. Like, I know that's not who I am. People, I think I've carried myself in a way where most of you know, like, it's just a fun fact for me, but that like the story and my life and like how this has literally changed my perspective and how I meet people, and just I always have like kind of led with empathy and gratitude. It's gotten me this far. I don't fucking plan on changing that anytime soon, because I mean, here we are. Like this is everything. What all I could have ever dreamed up was this, and just being able to talk and be me and share my art and do the things that I'm passionate about, because that's what fucking matters. That's the spice of life, baby.
Woo! Can we get a tremendous shout out in the chat for effing Shogundy, the legend, the Lugia of my life? Sometimes I open up cards packs and I just get holographic Shogundys these days. That's the kind of headspace that I've been living in. Let me tell you.
Yeah. They're like 10 cents now. So, I mean, they ain't worth much, but you can put them under your desk and on your stuff and like under chairs to level them out, like they're a dime a dozen.
Could you tell us about the vibes that you try to cultivate on your channel, the things that you do on your channel, and why every single, look at me, chat, look at me, every single fucking one of you now needs to follow him now.
My channel is a lot of obviously my inspirations, the games that I like to play. I've done the Kaizo Ironmon challenge forever. It's a stupid, dumb, idiot challenge that I don't think I'm ever gonna actually beat. But my toxic trait is that one day I think we're gonna beat it. For real, on God, all that.
What is the Kaizo Ironmon? It's like by rules for people that don't know.
You have to take one Pokemon through a completely random, jumbled up game of Pokemon and beat the whole thing in one go without dying, essentially.
Jumbled up, in other words,
faints.
Wild Pokemon and trainer Pokemon are just could be literally Lugia in the first route.
It could be every wild Pokemon could be Lugias. They could all be freaking Caterpies. Like it's a complete grab bag. And so every game is different. And there are people, it has been beaten by a lot of people, and they're on to like the next 2-3 tiers of this challenge now. But I like this one a lot because it speaks to how I used to play the games growing up. And I used to like challenge myself to try and see how long I could get through the game without having to go back and heal my Pokemon, or only using Squirtle and then Blastoise for the entire game, and just see how like, that natural instinct to like, okay, I like this. Let me put my own Shogundy spin on it. And the communities, again, like are incredible. Everyone's there to help. Everyone loves shouting each other out. I've met so many people from streaming that specific challenge that like, I don't know. I mean, I like to think that eventually it just found my way here. Shout out to Foxy Katie as well, who brought me here all those months ago. I came in on a Foxy raid and I never left. I never. Yeah.
When do you stream? Do you have a new schedule? I know you're at the Forge. You're kind of revamping things over there.
I want to play Wukong so bad.
Can I tell you my toxic trait is I want to play Wukong with you on a stream.
Yes.
kind of my.
Come,
That's
let me hear
secretly-
you knocking. Let's have you come in and do commentary, and we'll hang out. And like, if I'm streaming and you want to, even for like 10, 15 minutes, come through and we'll figure out how to make it work. But we have been waiting for this game for so long. I cannot believe I forgot it came out fucking today. Just those kind of games that visually just whisk you away. Like the moment that first panoramic shot hits, it's like, I want to be there. I want to be a monkey. I want to be Wukong. Please take me away, my sweet escape. Like, oh yeah, I'll be playing that definitely soon. And then we're doing a big marathon event. We actually did one with Erica Legacy a couple months back, and I was doing Kaizo and a bunch of other community games. Chris Mack was amazing. We worked together a little bit and made it such a special thing. I had never done a marathon event before, but it made me realize I want to do more, and I want to just put myself out there, do more creative, cool shit, and collaborate with people, and just share my inspirations, what got me here, and maybe pass it on to somebody else, dude. I'm all about collaboration and getting together, and just so much good stuff to come. Oh, so much good stuff.
This is only the frickin' beginning. Scintilla says, I'd love to see you and Shogundy play Abiotic Factor. Hey, Scintilla, look at the screen right now. Bing. Okay. We'll have to talk about how we can do a little knock-on stream. I would love to play that with you, or to just pop in and check in. And I think this is only the beginning for everybody in the cartoon therapy community. Not only, I don't even think I've said this entire time, not only is Shogungan a buddy, part of the community, he's also a freaking mod here. So if you act out of line, this guy will physically come to your house, and actually he will kill you. He will kill you.
Look at me. Look at me right now, chat. Look at me. Don't look at him. Don't look at him.
Don't look at me. Look at him.
Don't look at me. You looking? Are you paying attention? Eyes wide open. You ready? Happy birthday to you. You live in a zoo.
You
eat
chicken
lots of shit and monkeys. And then we'll play Wukong 2. Woo!
Thank you for being here. Thank you for taking the time today. Folks, please follow Shogungan. He will certainly be back on this show. We have a lot more to talk about. And thank you for sharing your vulnerability and your authenticity with us. You've made this community a brighter, better place. Sincerely.
No, you.
Get the fuck out of here.
No, you're the best. No, you're the fucking best.
No, you're the fucking best. No,
you're
fuck
the best.
you.
I love you.
Fuck you.
Fucking man.
Fuck you, but I love you. But fuck you, but I love you.
All right, we'll talk soon.